Welcome to Shelf Help, a channel dedicated to talking into the void about whatever book I happen to be reading. I'm your host, the reader. The following review will contain spoilers. Generally speaking, I want to review a series in order, but also I have thoughts on this book I don't want to sit on that long. Red Rising is a series about fighting fascists, a topic that feels more and more important these days. Once long ago, the people of Earth set out to conquer the moon, and later the rest of the solar system. Though there isn't a lot of detail into the past, I'm sure it all started reasonably enough. People specialize all the time, working together for a larger goal. Those good at flying piloted ships, while the mechanically minded engineers kept it running. But time passed and roles became cast. Genetic modification set them in stone. By the time the first book starts, society is full fascist. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation and race, and strong regimentation of society and the economy. The first 3 books follows Darrow's rise from Rust Red to Reaper of Mars. In broad strokes, it's a hero's journey with strong Nazi-punching energy, as Darrow literally beats the gold at their own game. And it could have ended there and been an excellent trilogy. The second part opens with Iron Gold, and decades have passed. Turns out the climax of Morningstar was just the start, which makes sense. My grandfather fought in World War II, but we still have Nazi ideology today. You aren't going to change thousands of years of social structure just by killing metaphorical Hitler. I will go into those details as I get to them, but for now I want to talk about Darrow, Thaw, Diomedes, and Lysander. Darrow is the Reaper of Mars, the breaker of chains. The rust-red hell-driver from the deep mines of the Red Planet, reborn through science into gold, made peerless scarred by his own indomitable will. Darrow sees the system from the view of the oppressed. Red are the smallest of the colors, rust-reds smaller still. They do the dirty and dangerous jobs, working in mines and deep inside ships and picking up trash. They get little, if any, compensation, and any form of rebellion is met with a whip and a rope. He is fighting for a better, fairer world, where people have a say in their own lives, and your color does not determine your fate. Mars is now a democratic republic, and the other core planets are just chomping at the bit to see it fail. Thaw is an obsidian. They are a slave caste. Huge and muscular, they're used as berserkers in gold wars. Gold exerts its control not through force, but religion. Obsidians are taught from a young age that golds are divine, and to serve and die for them is the greatest honor. At least until Darrow broke the chains and revealed the truth. Thaw is different. He is huge, even by obsidian standards, standing some 9 feet tall. He spent his youth as a gladiator in gold blood sports, and a stud used for breeding more like him. Like an animal. Without going deep into spoiler territory, I will just say he became Darrow's dark reflection. He promised obsidians a home of their own. But where Darrow broke chains, Thaw harnessed them. Leaning into the same gold-made religion he did not subscribe to in order to bind the obsidians to him and rebuild the hierarchy. And when he is done with his work, he looks forward to retiring to a Pegasus ranch. First. Same, dude. Same. Thaw does not want what is best for his people. Once he gets his, the rest of them can burn. He may be an obsidian by birth, but his loyalty is to the Gold Master who has given him the smallest taste of freedom. In an authoritarian system, there are always members of the oppressed class who side with the oppressors, either for personal gain or because they think they will be spared when the hammer falls. Think Ben Shapiro, a Jewish man who sides with anti-Semites on the regular. In the mines, it was the Gamma clan. By being spies and rats for their gray overlords, they were treated slightly better than the other Reds. Fa, like Darrow, is outside the system. But unlike Darrow, he is using it to ensure he wins, even if it means the death of thousands. What Fa has not yet realized is just because one gold promised him a peaceful retirement does not mean the rest have to honor it. But Fa is also a rather tragic figure. He was trapped and raised within the gold hierarchy, and like all such prisons, it's very hard to see the bars, much less break free. As Darrow muses, if he'd been born a generation later, whose side would he be on? Diomedes O-Ra is a rim gold. Unlike the core golds of society, the Moon Lords are less lavish in their lifestyle, but still enforce the social hierarchy. It's not exactly like the core's version, but it does rhyme. They see themselves as more fair and just, shepherds and guides to the low colors. Of course, shepherds guard sheep, so they can be used and consumed by their owners. And the Reds of the Rim are not treated any better than the Reds of the core. Those not chosen as breeding stock are sterilized and sent to do some of the most dangerous work. For a bunch of very good reasons, Diomedes sees Darrow as the enemy. But events force the two into an uneasy alliance, and Diomedes the shepherd is forced to speak with his very unhappy sheep. He does not buy the democracy Darrow is selling, at least not yet. But he sees how gold has fallen short of its promise to the other colors, and it is time to change. Also, the core has made it clear that the rim will bend or it will burn. Finally, there is Lysander. Grandson of Octavian, he was born to rule, destined to sit on the morning throne, until Darrow broke the chains and made him an exile. He likes the hierarchy just the way it is, thank you very much. And he will have order and peace and his throne in that order. I'll admit, at the beginning of the book, I kind of felt sorry for Lysander. He came off as a would-be king who had not realized he was a pawn. He's been out of the game for the whole war, and having to forge alliances from nothing. Most of the story is him being used by others to advance their own causes, while trading away his assets in the bargaining. And then comes the point when I stop feeling sorry for him. The fucking bastard. Lysander is pure core gold. He truly, in his heart, believes that the way things are is the best way for them to be. And yes, when order is enforced and individual desires oppressed with violence, things are peaceful. For those on top. Democracy, when it works, is loud, messy, and no one gets everything they want. It requires you to decide what is negotiable and what is not. Even in exile, Lysander never really had to get his hands dirty. He got to enjoy the proverbial burger without having to slaughter the cow. In short, he's an entitled little princeling who thinks the low colors should be happy to serve. And some are, because like Fa, it is all they have ever known, or they benefit from it. But he, Lysander, unlike Octavia and the other golds, have become corrupt and overcomfortable, will be fair and kind, the kid glove for the iron fist. Or so he tells himself. There are 2 points that really encompass who Lysander is: a line and an action. One of his most telling lines is when he says that pinks should be less consumable. Pinks are pleasure slaves, born and raised to be whatever their master desires. AKA, they are fuck toys until they're used up or killed or both. Lysander only thinks they should be less consumable. It's okay for an entire color, including the children, to be fuck toys as long as they get to practice acting and acrobatics for the entertainment of the rich. God, I can't wait for Darrow to put a razor in all of his squishy bits. The action is how he treats those he calls friends. At the beginning of the book, both Lysander and Darrow are at their lowest point. Darrow has lost his army and retreated to a radiation-filled hideaway. He hasn't been in this bad a shape since the beginning of Morningstar. His ride home finally arrives. He also learns Severo has been taken captive. Or maybe it was a ploy to draw him out. Darrow sends what is left of his army home, and with nothing but a borrowed razor and a couple of allies of questionable loyalty, he sets off to save his friend. I won't tell you how that shakes out. Everyone needs a Sam. Everyone also needs a Severo. Lysander, despite his reclaiming of Mercury, really only has a cavalry charge to his name as far as battle goes. Not exactly a standout for a society where battle prowess is acclaimed. He spends most of his time glad-handing investors and playing governor. Lysander often waxes poetic about his friendship with Glirastes, an orange engineer, how he could spend hours talking to the tinkerer about his latest invention and how amazing he is at shipbuilding. Yet when Atlantia has Glirastes captive and promises to turn the engineer into a pair of boots if Lysander does not keep his mouth shut during a meeting, sacrifices must be made for peace. What can I say? Lysander is no Darrow. These four represent the crossroads of the world. Two ruling class, two slaves. Two who see the need for change, and two who like the hierarchy. Two who benefit from the system, and two the system has screwed over. The problem Darrow and Lysander both face is that there is no middle ground in their positions. Darrow and his people will never go back to being slaves. Lysander cannot have his orderly peace while the Republic exists. Diomedes' position is, long-term, untenable. Unless he can somehow create a system in which the ruling class is always benevolent, which seems astoundingly unlikely. Without the low colors having a say in their own future, all his changes will be undone by subsequent generations, either through malice or convenience. Either way, ultimately it will all end up back where they are now. Interesting that the wolf is the one telling the shepherd to be nicer to the sheep. I wonder if that will go anywhere in Red God. Thank you for your time. I know everyone's mileage will vary, so feel free to leave your thoughts.